So I'm saying on the record that back and forth, I know that everybody can be bought in politics. And Say was definitely a political gadfly, as they called him in the paper. So he was into politics. So I really say to people that that's why Tommy got 50 years. And that's why Tommy was released. Because of politics, Tommy was convicted and sent to prison. Whereas I believe that our case was supposed to be thrown out based on the illegal search and seizure. And that's what I'm going to show in the book, how it was illegal. Just the concept of them stopping us and asking the search is illegal because you have a right to privacy. You have a right under the Constitution to have privacy. You cannot be even asked to search your vehicle in that light.
I want to talk about that search and seizure that happened with you guys, because it's really, it's a big deal today. But in the book, and we're talking about, you know, the Ron Fields and the Steve Clarks and all of that, but in your book, you've actually shown documentation, stories from the media. So the things that you're talking about are not hearsay things. Those are things that have been reported on, and they're things that you show in your book, how they, the exact incident and what happened. So right. I just wanted to clear that up as you're calling and naming names, because that's what you're doing in the book. You're right. actually showing evidence as well. Right. This is what happened, and, right. and you're showing evidence as it goes along. Right. Now, search and seizure is a big deal, because right. A lot of people don't really understand and know what they can do if they're stopped, like you guys were stopped. And the question of is, were you guys supposed to have that truck searched? And then the evidence after that search, was it really admissible and should it have been thrown out? Give us a brief history of what happened to you and what really the law is and what they can and cannot do.
Actually, when we were traveling east on 40, and the police was at a very far away distance, and I was able to zoom in and see that was a police. We were just getting on.
Were you driving?
No, I was actually in the passenger seat in the front.
Okay.
And we had just left the gas station, and we were getting onto the freeway. I said, "Tommy, there's a police up there," and he was getting onto the freeway, merging in, and the police actually was way up the highway, and we were driving towards it. And as we were coming towards him, he kind of slowed down. It was as though he looked and said, "There they are," and then he came across the median. And at that point, I told Tommy, I said, "Look, Tommy, go and get your speeding ticket, and we're going to continue to go on." And Tommy went back to the police car, and he was writing up the ticket. And Tommy was asked, "Are you carrying any drugs or contraband?" And he said, "No." Now, this is the catch to this whole thing. When Tommy actually told the police he wasn't carrying any contraband, the police showed him a form. It says, for starts, that the state police are conducting an investigation. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, at that point, you're lying on this form, because you're giving this form to everybody you stop. But it's a psychological form. It gets you off kilt to make you sign it as though you are not doing yourself a disservice, but you are. So Tommy signs the form and says that this is not my vehicle simultaneously. You need to get Mr. Crawford back to the vehicle. Okay. At this point, when he called me back to the car, I said, "I'm in the mix. I'm going to try to plead the fifth. He's going to ask me some questions, and I'm going to try to avoid it." And that's what I did. So he made it seem as though I approved of him to search, but I never signed anything. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it put me in a bad situation because Tommy had already signed, and I'm coming back to the car. Do I have the right after? Because I'm reading the form. So he hands me the form that Mr. McIntosh is impairing control of the vehicle. He has signed off, but he says that you actually rented the vehicle. But actually, I was a third party because there was the actual one who rented the vehicle, then me. So really, that was a wishy-washy type of deal. But the only thing that was bad about it is that Tommy had already signed it. Now, could I have said, no, you can't search the vehicle? Yes, I had a right to do that. But guess what? He was going to search the vehicle anyway. Now, would it have been easier to throw out in court? Possibly. Because once you have the McIntosh name attached to that type of deal and he's in politics, it's going to be a wishy-washy case anyway. We up there in an all-white community up in Fort Smith, Arkansas during that time. It was 1987. So at that point, you were going to have an issue anyway. So I just fast forward and say, hey, we're going to have to deal with it anyway. Because once you get committed, but he didn't have probable cause. See, when you don't have probable cause, you haven't seen any contraband, you don't smell anything, really just based on the concept of you were being stopped for speeding and Tommy's nervousness, anybody that stopped by police is going to have a degree of being nervous. So that was a false pretense. So that being said, I know to this day that although we got convicted, we got busted with the drugs, we still had rights as citizens, and the police officer violated those rights by their criminal apprehension program. See, they had a CAP program, that's how they were stopping. It's like driving while black today. It was driving on the freeway and you have any type of reasonable suspicion that these people may be mules or couriers for drugs or money, then you need to coerce them. See, that was a coerced form. They coerced Tommy into signing it because he thought he was getting out of the responsibility of him by telling him that he said, well, just like you signed a ticket, go ahead and sign this form. See, I don't know to this day what was said because that was water under the bridge. And I never blamed Tommy for anything in that sense of the word as far as having signed off on it, because once he stopped us, it could have went any kind of way at that point.